Welcome back to Beyond the Facts, where famous stories meet the truth behind them. You may have heard the old phrase, "If you believe that, I've got a bridge to sell you." But what if someone really did try to sell the Brooklyn Bridge? Today, we uncover the incredible and surprisingly complicated story of the man linked to one of America's most famous scams. It is one of the most famous landmarks in America, a bridge built to join two cities to carry workers, merchants, dreamers, and millions of ordinary lives across the East River. And according to one of New York's great criminal legends, it was sold. Not once, but again and again. The man most often credited with the scam is George C. Parker, a smooth-talking con artist said to have fooled newcomers into buying a bridge they could never own. But there is a twist. The man called George C. Parker may not have been George C. Parker at all. Before there was a confidence trick, there was an engineering miracle. In 1869, construction began on what was first called the New York and Brooklyn Bridge. Its designer, John Augustus Roebling, died before the work could truly begin. His son, Washington Roebling, became chief engineer, then fell gravely ill after working on the bridge's foundations. Washington's wife, Emily Roebling, became indispensable, carrying information, supervising details, and helping bring the project to completion. On May 24, 1883, the bridge opened. It was the longest suspension bridge in the world. It linked Brooklyn and Manhattan with a fixed crossing for the first time. Thousands watched the ceremony. More than 100,000 crossed on opening day. It was not merely a bridge. It was spectacle, industry, transportation, and money. New York was becoming a city of arrival. Immigrants and visitors came with savings, ambition, limited local knowledge, and the hope that America could turn a small investment into a new life. The Brooklyn Bridge seemed perfect for that dream. It was visible, it was profitable, it was impressive, and in its early years, people and vehicles paid tolls to cross it. A buyer who believed he owned the bridge could imagine charging every pedestrian, carriage, and wagon that crossed. That practical fact would become the engine of a fantastic lie. In the summer of 1928, police arrested an elderly confidence man in Asbury Park, New Jersey. He was brought back to Brooklyn to face charges involving a worthless check. Newspapers called him William McCloundy. Others called him John McCarthy. He had used names including I.O.U. O'Brien, Mr. Roberts, Mr. Taylor, the Warden, and George C. Parker. The aliases were so numerous that even police accounts struggled to settle the question of his true name. The best-supported modern reconstruction identifies the man as John McCarthy. George C. Parker was one name in a long criminal wardrobe. The familiar version says Parker was born in New York City in 1860 to Irish immigrant parents. It says he began swindling people soon after leaving school, that he targeted newly arrived immigrants, bribed ferry drivers to identify prospects, rented offices, produced impressive forged papers, and sold landmark after landmark. Some of those details may be true, but many cannot be firmly verified from contemporary records. The historical evidence supports a long career of confidence crimes. It supports the use of aliases. It supports a prison history and a 1928 life sentence. But the precise birth story, the number of bridge sales, and many of the most colorful tales remain uncertain. The legend is not useless. It tells us how America remembered the crime. But memory is not the same thing as proof. The essential trick was simple. A con artist did not have to make the victim believe the entire city had lost its mind. He only had to make the victim believe there was a private arrangement, an ownership interest, a concession, a lease, or a hidden opportunity. The papers gave the lie physical weight. The bridge's former tolls gave it financial logic. The city's size gave it anonymity. and the victim's desire for a fresh start did the rest. The earliest known contemporary newspaper report of a Brooklyn bridge-selling fraud dates to 1900. It concerned an Italian bunco man who reportedly sold interests in the bridge and other attractions to fellow Italians. That man was Edward Basso, not John McCarthy or George C. Parker. By 1928, police and newspapers said McCarthy, also known as McCloundy, had sold the bridge in 1901 and served 2.5 years in Sing Sing. The original records behind that claim are difficult to reconstruct today, but 1928 reporting consistently tied him to an earlier bridge sale. This changes the story. He may have been one of the most famous bridge sellers. He may have been a prolific one, but he was not necessarily the first. One 1928 report said the con man had sold the bridge for $50,000, then sold it again 2 weeks later for $25,000. Other Brooklyn newspapers were more restrained. They reported that he had sold the bridge at one time. Still, other stories said he sold it twice a week for years. That is the problem with a legend born in headlines. The details became larger every time they were repeated. A $50,000 sale would have been an enormous fraud. Yet researchers have not found contemporary reporting of such an event from the period when it supposedly happened. That does not prove it never occurred. It does mean we should not treat the figure as settled fact. The cautious conclusion is still remarkable. A real confidence man, using many names, was credibly linked to selling the Brooklyn Bridge. The larger legend credits Parker or McCarthy with selling more than the bridge. Grant's tomb, the Statue of Liberty, Madison Square Garden, the Metropolitan Museum of Art, lots in City Hall Park, rights to plays and successful shows, property that did not belong to him, businesses that did not exist, opportunities created entirely from paper and confidence. One especially durable story says he posed as Ulysses S. Grant's grandson and asked investors to help complete Grant's tomb. Not every landmark story can be tied to McCarthy with the same certainty, but the central truth remains. He made public symbols look like private assets. The most cinematic tale says buyers tried to set up toll booths on the Brooklyn Bridge, only to be stopped by police and discover they had been cheated. It is a perfect ending to a perfect scam. It is also difficult to document case by case. There are many later retellings of victims trying to collect tolls. It fits the logic of the fraud. But specific toll booth incidents are not always supported by named victims, dates, or police reports. The image survives because it explains the crime in a single shot. A stranger standing on a public bridge with a fake deed and nowhere to turn. By the time of his final arrest, McCarthy had spent years in and out of prison. Reports described a man arrested more than a dozen times, a veteran of the confidence game, and a former inmate of Sing Sing. One widely repeated account says he escaped from Raymond Street Jail in 1908 by putting on a sheriff's hat and coat, then simply walking out. It was a fitting escape for a man whose trade was performance. He did not need to smash every lock. Sometimes he only had to look as though he belonged. Another account says he later tried to dig or chip his way out of Dannemora prison with a pointed stick. Whether every prison anecdote is precise or not, the theme is consistent. He treated authority as a costume, a prop, or an obstacle to be talked around. In 1928, the long career of aliases and swindles came down to something almost ordinary: a forged or worthless check for $150. The press described McCarthy as one of the smartest men police had encountered, a man whose intelligence might have made him a judge or a doctor, had he used it differently. It was a familiar moral of the era: talent wasted on crime. But it also reveals the fascination surrounding him. A confidence man succeeds only when people want to believe his intelligence is exceptional, perhaps exceptional enough to make the impossible possible. New York's Baume's law imposed a mandatory life sentence on a person convicted of a fourth felony. For McCarthy, now widely identified in accounts as George C. Parker or William McCloundy, the law transformed a relatively small check fraud into a final sentence. Judge Alonzo G. McLaughlin sentenced him to life in Sing Sing. The press had found the story it wanted. The man who had supposedly sold the Brooklyn Bridge had finally been sent up the river for life. McCarthy, known to history as George C. Parker, spent the rest of his life in Sing Sing prison at Ossining, New York. Later accounts say he entertained guards and fellow prisoners with stories of his exploits. By then, the distinction between the man and his legend may have disappeared even inside the prison walls. He died at Sing Sing on January 9, 1937. Today, nobody can buy the Brooklyn Bridge. New York City owns, operates, and maintains it. But the language of the con remains alive. The phrase became shorthand for a lie too obvious to believe, or for a person supposedly foolish enough to believe it. But the victims were not simply stupid. Confidence crimes work because they use ordinary human qualities: hope, trust, urgency, and the belief that hard work can lead to a better future. The bridge scam was not only about gullibility. It was about inequality of information. One person knew the city, the legal system, the language, the paperwork, and the rules. The other did not. So who was the man who sold the Brooklyn Bridge? The answer is not as clean as the legend. His true name appears to have been John McCarthy. William McCloundy, IOU O'Brien, George C. Parker, and others were names he used, or names attached to him by police and newspapers. He did not invent every bridge swindle. He may not have sold the bridge as often as later stories claimed. Some of the landmark sales attributed to him may belong to the wider folklore of the confidence game. But a real con artist stood at the center of it all. He built fortunes out of forged authority. He turned a public monument into a private fantasy. And he understood a dangerous truth. A lie does not need to be believable to everyone. It only needs to be believable to someone at exactly the moment they need it to be true. The Brooklyn Bridge was never his to sell, but the story was. Fade out. The Brooklyn Bridge was never his to sell, but for decades the legend was. Thank you for watching Beyond the Facts. If you enjoyed uncovering the real story behind this famous myth, please like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications for more forgotten history, mysteries, and stories beyond the facts. Until next time, keep questioning the story behind the story.